My name is Bob Harrington. I'm a cardiologist, clinical trialist, outcomes researcher, and the chair of medicine here at Stanford. I have the pleasure of introducing the next group of speakers and to moderate the Q&A at the end. Over the course of the next hour and a half, you'll be able to hear from three of our colleagues who have been involved with the Precision Medicine Initiative, now called the All of Us Research Program. As you know, this was initiated by President Obama in 2015 and is really an amazing and historic attempt to collect large-scale amount of data on over 1 million individuals in the United States, 1 million individuals who represent the ethnic and biologic diversity of all of us in the U.S. And it really is an extraordinary opportunity to learn more about the interaction of biology, the environment, lifestyle, etc. And you'll hear from three of the leaders of that program in a moment. The first speaker will be my good friend and colleague, Eric Topol. Eric is a cardiologist and the professor of genomics at the Scripps Research Institute. He's also the founder and director of the Scripps Translational Science Institute. As a researcher in the biomedical sciences, Eric's work is really unprecedented and unparalleled. He's published over 1,100 peer-review manuscripts. These have resulted in almost 200,000 citations. And over the last decade, he's been listed as one of the 10 top-cited researchers in all of the field of medicine. Prior to coming to Scripps in 2007, for a decade, Eric led the country's #1 ranked heart program at Cleveland Clinic. He was also, while at Cleveland, the founder of a new medical school, the Lerner Medical School, in collaboration between Cleveland Clinic and Case Western University. He's been voted the #1 most influential physician leader in the United States in a recent poll by Modern Healthcare. His principal scientific interest has been on how to bring together genomic insights and digital tools to individualize medicine, to build upon some of the themes you've heard from President Mark Tessier-Levine and Dean Miner. In 2006, Eric and his colleagues at Scripps were awarded a $200 million grant from the NIH to lead a significant portion of the Precision Medicine Initiative, and that is going to be the topic of his plenary opening session today. So join me in welcoming Dr. Eric Topol to campus.
Thanks, Eric. Okay, it's great to be with you. Thanks to Carlos and all the folks here at Stanford for the invitation. Finally, after 5 of these programs, I've been able to join, and it's been something I've followed from Scripps. It's such a great program advancing the field. So I'm going to get into not just, as Bob mentioned, the Precision Medicine Initiative, All of Us research program, which is also going to follow in this session, but the overall topic. And I call it high definition or individualized medicine. I actually think individualized is a little more precise than precision, because it actually is denoting not only the ability to define a human being digitally, but also that person, that individual driving a lot more of their care. So first I want to get a sense of where we are in medicine in 2017, because it's actually remarkably primitive. It's in many ways you could consider even pathetic, and I hope I can make that case with you very quickly. Firstly, screening, mass screening. Mammography. Take 10,000 prototypic 50-year-old women, have them have a mammogram every year for 10 years, and what do you have? You have a very few number, 5 out of 10,000 who are benefited, and over 6,000 who are given false positives, but a large number of those are actually harmed. And then if we turn to prostate cancer screening, it's not a very dissimilar picture. And this was summarized just at the end of March in the New England Journal. Basically, it comes down to 1 death per 1,000 men at the trade-off of hundreds of men who are hurt by the screening. These, if they were drugs, would never be approved. And this pictorial summary shows you how many people are harmed from mass screening today, which still continues. That's just screening. What about drugs? These are the top 10 drugs by gross sales in the United States just a couple of years ago. It hasn't changed very much. The pink or red people are schematically the non-responders. And if you look at these top drugs, you find out cumulatively 75% of people do not respond. And these are the expensive drugs. And we do nothing to change that based on using, for example, pharmacogenomics. Then we have medical errors. a medical error rate, this is a controversial paper from Johns Hopkins that came out last year. It's somewhere between the third and fourth, you could argue, leading cause of death in the United States. And in fact, the data that surrounds this error problem is remarkable and largely hasn't changed since it was flagged in 1999 by the classic Institute of Medicine, then IOM report. Then you have diagnostic errors, serious diagnostic errors, 12 million a year, at least, as has been reported on. Still, the way medicine is practiced in 2017. So to sum things up, we now spend at least 3.4 trillion, that's 2016. 3.4 trillion, if we just look at it in economic terms, not just the fact that we're not delivering excellent care, as Lloyd mentioned, as far as ranking so poorly in life expectancy, it's much beyond that. And if you just look at the summary of what I've just reviewed, it's more than 60% false positives for mass screening. 1 in 4 people I didn't mention, but that's where at least that many are still harmed in the hospital. We have these 12 million or more serious diagnostic errors. We have, didn't mention, but I think you know, undiagnosed diseases are a big problem with at least a few million people in the US that are walking around with serious disabling conditions. Then you have this unresponsiveness to drugs. And then finally, just to sum things up at least, we've got these medication errors and adverse events that are accounting for a leading cause of death, no less disability. So this isn't a very good bargain, and this is where we stand today. We have to be able to do better than that, you would think, if we can define each individual, which we didn't have the tools to do that until now. So we can move from where we see people all the same up in 30, 50,000 feet level, which is the way medicine's practiced and the way we give out drugs and make diagnoses and do screening, to ending this concept of average. These books have nothing to do with medicine, but in fact, they have everything to do with medicine. We need to get over this average human being who doesn't exist. And what we need to move to is the patient-centered medicine, which was written about in 1969, but we haven't even come close to that concept. And that concept in this, what I consider classic paper, the patient, in fact, has to be understood as a unique human being. We haven't done anything to do that until now. Now we have the exciting, opportune time to change medicine by focusing on what makes a person unique. And we can do that because we can map a human being. And this GIS, or Geographic Information System, like a Google map, where every layer is defined. We can do that now. And not just the phenome, external features, but of course the physiome, the anatome, all the different biologic omic layers, and the exposome, that is the environment, can be quantified through sensors. So we can do this, and we couldn't do it previously. And this is really exciting, and unfortunately, we tend to overemphasize the sequence and the omic portion of this. And that's why, for example, precision medicine is flanked very commonly with things like this cover in Nature about genomics and precision medicine. It's much bigger than that. To define a human being's medical essence, it's more than just that person's sequence. And in fact, when we define a person, we can do that many times along the way of a lifespan. And in fact, this is just a genomic story here that's outlined in this review that I had authored about pre-womb to tomb. I was told by a colleague I had the wrong title for that paper, that it should have been From Lust to Dust. And I said, okay, you're right about that. That would have been a much snappier title. We don't even use this stuff. For example, what is the percent of couples who are going to planning to conceive a baby? How many of them have their recessive alleles screened? Anybody? In this country, what percent? And it can be done for $99 or $199. And it can be the greatest form of preventive medicine we could ever imagine. And take that all the way through with things like sequencing in cancer and infectious disease. There'll be a big report later today about tracking Zika through genomic epidemiology in Nature. Actually, 3 major papers, one of which comes from our group at Scripps. So anyway, we don't even use this stuff in day-to-day practice. So that's what's surprising to see on the cover of Modern Healthcare recently. Genomic medicine goes mainstream. So, whoa, really? And this accompanying editorial, personalized medicine is here. Really? I didn't know that. And if you blow up the Modern Healthcare article, this is what you see. Patients, as a regular part of their care, are getting their DNA sequence, seeing it matched against known genetically related conditions, and having their medications checked for genetic suitability. Really? This is like a dream state. I must have missed something. Nobody's doing this, but it's in a magazine article. Okay. I'm not going to delve into more genomics, but I want to now round it out with the things that haven't been emphasized enough, which is this overall tech story. And so medicine today, 2017, is still in the early part of the third industrial revolution. The rest of the world has moved to the fourth industrial revolution, which incorporates big data and artificial intelligence, robotics, and other things. We haven't even really gotten close to that. So this is the kind of stuff that is in the hospital and clinics and used today by physicians and clinicians. Analog stuff, wires everywhere in a hospital room, obsolete equipment that doesn't record anything. That's what we use today. This is what a clinic room looks like everywhere in this country. But we have smart everything. We haven't made this transition. We've got smart, you name it, to be able to digitally assess a human being, and we don't use these tools. I don't know what it's going to take to use these tools, but we have them out there. And the smartphone is the hub of this because we already rely on that for everything in our day-to-day existence. This is just piggybacking onto that whole story. So there are sensors that can track basically every physiologic system of a human being. Most of those are wearable. Some of them would be ingestible or even embeddable. But we have the sensors. Many of them have already been validated. Many of them are already FDA approved. So for example, here's one to do the electrocardiogram with fingertips, making a circuit with the heart, the size smaller than a credit card, and not only getting a reading of heart rhythm, but an algorithm that determines with high accuracy what is the rhythm to get instant answer to an individual. You can even have it on your watch. If you're really into this, I don't suggest it to watch your rhythm continuously on your watch, but it can be done today. And then, of course, you can do more than a heart rhythm. You can do a full electrocardiogram through this type of device, and that's coming. It's already been done. It's just now becoming more the routine. Then there's blood pressure. This device, a watch from Omron. This was approved by the FDA several weeks ago. I've been testing it, and they have a new sportier version that's in the queue for later this year. And I've been testing it against conventional digital blood pressure readings, and it works extremely well. So I thought I would test it under a condition of stress. And I was reading these articles about Trump budget calls for seismic disruption in medical and science research. And this cartoon that I modified, this section made possible by eliminating NIH. So that I look what it did to my wrist blood pressure, and you can see right here. Just press start and you have your blood pressure. The fact is you can do this now through your watch accurately, and this can be done at any time, at least while you're awake, such that you're having a heated discussion with your spouse, or you're in traffic, or all sorts of things that we couldn't do before. Then there's glucose. Glucose that you can get every 5 minutes to your phone, or these glucose glances to your watch, which have a big impact on what you might eat when you know that you're going to be seeing the glucose effect just in minutes subsequently. And of course, it's not just the sensors of today. Verily is working on a sensor which is going to be making finger sticks eventually obsolete because it's so inexpensive and works to provide factory calibrated glucose sensing. Why would you have to go through finger sticks and inaccurate readings when you can have a sensor like this in the next couple of years? But what's interesting is now we have healthy people who without diabetes using these sensors. that can be used on the abdomen or the arm. And this was reported in Time. And then just earlier this week, Tim Cook was seen with a glucose sensor. He doesn't have diabetes. So it's starting to have rippling effects for people who want to understand what affects their glucose homeostasis. Now, this is a device that I'm particularly keen on because I see it as the real stethoscope, not the pseudo stethophone or scope that has been used for 201 years. This is connecting to the smartphone and gets exquisite images that we have published are as good as the hospital or clinic $350,000, $400,000 ultrasound machine. And so this is the device that I've been using over the past year. It's the Philips Lumify device, and it gets extraordinary pictures of the heart. And what I think you can see is you get every aspect of the heart instantly, within seconds. And you share it with the patient who otherwise wouldn't see their heart if they go to the ultrasonography laboratory. And this is done quickly, and why would you listen anymore to lub-dub when you can see everything? And the same here is being able to color map the flow of the heart. And in addition, this is someone with a BMI of 42. It doesn't affect the image quality. It's extraordinary. And so this is the kind of way that we can do a heart exam quickly, not with listening to heart sounds, which previously I had been a great enthusiast of, but that is obsolete today. So I decided to use this device for a ultimate medical selfie. That is a head-to-toe ultrasound. And so I did that. Here's my carotid, sinuses, thyroid, lung. I already showed you the heart. And you just go the rest of the body: liver, kidney, gallbladder, iliac, spleen, aorta, inferior vena cava, popliteal fossa, and my left foot. Now this is extraordinary because except for the brain, you can image with your smartphone at high resolution. And I had the misfortune of thinking I might have had a kidney stone. And so I decided I would do I had this warm-up act with the selfie. So I said, I'm going to look at my kidneys and see if that's what's going on. And indeed, I had this very dilated left kidney, which I decided was not a good thing. And I probably should go to the emergency room. So I did that. And then I had a CAT scan, which showed the same exact thing. And it also showed 3 stones in the ureter. And what's interesting, and the bladder. And what's interesting is I subsequently got the bill for the CAT scan of $2,200. Fortunately, most of that was covered by insurance. I could have done this for free through my own smartphone. And fortunately, later I was able to pass these stones, which was not a particularly pleasurable experience. Now, what I'm trying to convey is we have this medicalized smartphone. And we're on the march to achieve all these things that are listed on the slide, some of which are already there, such as remarkable medical imaging and all this sensor technology and much, much more. So what are we going to use this for to then advance the field? And indeed, you're going to hear from Jessica Mega later this morning about Verily's baseline project. It's already been mentioned. Stanford obviously has a major role in this. And I was at Verily yesterday, and it is extraordinary how quickly I even saw one of these individuals with this comprehensive assessment that they're doing while happening online while I was visiting. And this is really quite remarkable. And that's in 10,000 individuals. And we'll learn a lot from it. And so what we're going to be talking about this morning in this session is the All of Us research program, the Precision Medicine Initiative, and this whole idea of bringing in 1 million individuals across America to participate as citizen scientists, as active participants in learning about this new futuristic medicine, getting their data. And at Scripps, we're responsible for the participant center. You'll hear from Josh Denny, who is responsible for the whole data analytics center at Vanderbilt. And then also Mayo Clinic is handling all the biospecimens. And there's a large network of health systems around the country that are also actively participating. This is just a table that compares the Framingham Heart Study, the most famous longitudinal study for which we learned so much of what we know today about risk of heart disease from that study. That small cohort followed for many years with conventional medical data assessment and only coming in for checkups on every other year and not getting their data back. which is in great contrast to a diverse population getting their data back and having remote enrollment and remote engagement. So the participant center that we're heading up at Scripps is a big charge within this program. We are fortunate to work with many different partners. And as Mark emphasized, this critical aspect of academia and industry partnerships. So we will have people enrolling, for example, at Walgreens medical clinics, through Quest clinics, through the blood banks all around the country. And we have the ability to identify individuals through information resources like WebMD, like Blue Cross Blue Shield, which has 106 million people in its resource of data, and Walgreens. So this is really a formidable group that we've assembled to be able to execute the enrollment of 350,000 individuals and the technical support for the entire million-person cohort. This is the frame of demonstrating a new way of doing clinical trials, part of which we hope to fully assemble within the Precision Medicine Initiative. This digital end-to-end clinical trial that's shown here schematically, where you have participants enrolling through smartphones and mobile devices, that we have learned about the right participants through information resources like I've mentioned, WebMD, Walgreens, Blue Cross Blue Shield, those sorts of entities. We've already done a large trial with Aetna to be able to show proof of concept. Then the data are collected through patient, participant-generated data platforms. It's shared with the participant. We can then identify digital twins. I'll get into that in a moment, this nearest neighbor analysis, to help people with their care, not just with research. And then quick dissemination through preprints and the usual ways that the results are disseminated, of course, involving participants. Now let's get to big data. This was the cover of The Economist just a couple of weeks ago. And it framed the likes of Google and Facebook and these other big data companies as claiming the most valuable resource. But I actually think that's not true. That is, we're now creating zettabytes of data each year, zettabytes. But most of that data is hoarded and stored, and very little of it is ever meaningfully analyzed. So the word big is like, so what? It's just big. We need to go beyond big. And so now everything is deep. This is just a summary of deep. There's all the deep things I put together that I could find. If you know of some more, let me know. Just send me a note. But these are, everything is going deep. We were big, now we're deep. The point being is that with deep data, as particularly deep learning and artificial intelligence, we can create superior human beings, both the participants in studies, the patients, the doctors, the clinicians. We underrate everybody when they have the help of AI. And this is, of course, the cover of last month's National Geographic, Beyond Human. That is the synergy between machine and man. And that's a very exciting future. And we've seen it already with the deep learning papers that have come out in recent months, such as the one in JAMA at the end of last year, showing the capability of deep learning for retinopathy and diabetes that can at least perform as well, if not better, than ophthalmologists. The paper from here at Stanford, perhaps the best paper yet to date published on deep learning, showed that comparing 21 board-certified Stanford dermatologists versus deep learning of skin lesions for cancer, that the algorithms for learning skin lesion definition for cancer was at least as good, if not better, than the 21 dermatologists. And it doesn't get tired. It doesn't have a bad day. And it's really cheap to do it once it's validated. And so this was, of course, the usual response to anything that's done without a doctor. This was the Lancet just last week. Have we been outsmarted? And the dermatologists don't like this. I understand that. But it is never to say we're substituting dermatologist diagnosis. We're supplementing it with new means of achieving it. And just like even psychiatry and psychologists in being able to diagnose the likelihood of suicide, algorithms have been shown to be at least as good, if not better, for that. And we're still in the early stages of AI. But this economic story is formidable. And that is Zach Cohane and JAMA recently talked about how if you could now image today 260 million medical scans using deep learning to interpret them, that could be done in one day at the cost of $1,000. So if you don't think AI will have an economic case in medicine, then you probably are not keeping up with this field. And indeed, if you want to keep up, the article that Sid Mukherjee had in the New Yorker, Open Access, AI versus MD, I highly recommend. This is the algorithm will see you now. And it's a great article on where we stand today with AI, no less where we're headed. The point is that everyone will see you now, except the doctor, okay? Dr. Google, the algorithm, the machine, the robot, the computer, on and on. We'll see you now, but the doctor takes 2.9 weeks on average, primary care in the United States. So that isn't working. And so what people are going to be relying on more and more over time is digital medical assistants. You probably know that over 250,000 people asked Alexa to marry them last year. So they might have been joking, I don't know, but probably were. But the point being is that we are really embracing digital assistants, and the medical is just like the medicalized smartphone, it's the medicalized digital assistant. And so I'll leave you with just a couple of points, and that is, am I human? That is this hybridization of machines and algorithms and AI with human beings, that we can't ever lose touch with the fact that this human-to-human interface that actually Lloyd touched on in his opening remarks is going to be more critical than ever. So it's not going to be displaced or supplanted. It's actually going to be prioritized and highlighted. And making AI more human is not really the goal. It's actually making humans more human would be my goal. So I just will leave you with that this field has moved from digitization. The field hasn't really adopted it yet, but the potential is there, to democratization, which is the empowerment of individuals with these tools and with their data that they should rightfully own, which they don't yet, but someday hopefully they will. And then finally to this deep learning, deep phase, which we are going to embark on, whether medicine likes it or not, in the years ahead. That leads us to this really exciting concept, a true learning system. Another term that's bannered about quite a bit, but there's not been really anything until recently to demonstrate that it is going to be accomplished. That is, each individual generating data and this ability to learn from that data, and that data is then brought to an enormous knowledge resource that is shared for all people. And that when the next person comes around with a diagnosis, benefits from all the definition of the first person, the earlier person, their demographics, their treatments, their outcomes, to match that individual to have better outcomes. And this has already started in only in the cancer space. There's 2 knowledge banks that have been created. This concept of learning from each person so that other people can be helped. And this is the bridge from a pure research program to one that is truly a clinical impact program. And so we can break down these walls that have traditionally been the case for people that are doing, for example, genomic research of cancer, and now using genomics and all the lessons we're learning in immunotherapy and liquid biopsies, treatments, and outcomes to basically enhance a given individual's likelihood of outcome. That's a true learning system. So what I want to submit to you is that by having this digital twin, this nearest neighbor analysis, we can really jump forward in medicine. But in order to do that, we have to have the willingness of people on this planet to work together. This open science, open medicine, open everything story. Now, Facebook has achieved that for social purposes in over now 2 billion people on the planet. And the question is, I just made this up, why don't we have MedBook? 2 billion, 7 billion people, where we all learn from each other in this big and deep data world that we're moving into. So I just would submit to you that in the future, someday, Carlos and colleagues may want to entertain the renaming of this program from big data in biomedicine to deep data in biomedicine. And I'll leave you with that. Thanks so much for your attention and acknowledging all the great colleagues that I get to work with at Scripps. Thank you.